Hi, it's Winton Churchill with the Barefoot Consultants, and I'd like to welcome you to our Freelance Friday call, where we do a lot of Q&A and also cover some ground about baby boomers freelancing. And today we're going to talk about 3 mistakes that baby boomers make when they set up their portfolio in an online environment. So welcome aboard, and we'd also like to welcome our participants that listen to the playback of this. We realize that not everybody can show up on this call at the specific time that it happens, but we make it available in our our private Facebook site and our public Facebook site, and we're happy to have overwhelmingly the largest number of people that watch this are watching the playback, and we'd like to say welcome to you as well. And for those of you that are just getting on, I see Greg's there. Good to see you. Excellent. Yes, this is Friday, October 16th at noon Central Time. We're live. So if you're seeing this after that, it's a little bit later. It's recorded. So there you go. Okay. And I see we've got some other people coming on the line. If you would just share where you're from, we always love to see who's coming in from where and that kind of thing. You know, a lot of our work over the last 13 years that we've been helping baby boomers get online has been done for people that want to live internationally, you know, that want to travel internationally. And there's Robert Herb coming in from Roatan and day 214 of the lockdown. Good to see you. I saw on your webpage you're back diving, it looks like. So that's good. And I see, Greg, you're stuck in the Dominican. And yeah, we're all stuck a variety of places. And this view here is off my balcony down in Huatulco, or it's I'm actually sitting in the kitchen. It's a green screen, so it's not. I'm actually sitting in a 2-bedroom apartment in Dallas. But when we make training videos, one of the things that we find is that if the screen is the same all the time, or the picture behind you is the same and it doesn't change, that people will watch a video and they say, I think I saw this before, when in fact they haven't. So that's what we do. You know, so we rotate screens on there, and it helps remind me what it's going to be like when I get back to Huatulco. Actually, we're just coming up on the season in Huatulco. It starts in about November 15th. So, you know, all kind of sweating out when are we going to be able to travel and that sort of thing. So let's see. A couple interesting comments here. Robert says that they're now finally having guests for diving. And similar thing in Huatulco is that they're opening up on a limited basis. The restaurants are opening up, and the businesses are doing that. And Greg is saying, who's stuck in the Dominican Republic, that you're no longer allowed to go home, which is kind of interesting, which certainly this is very hurtful to the tourist region in towns like Huatulco, where, you know, 60-70% of the commerce of the whole town comes from tourists coming in. And so, yeah, we want to help all these folks when things get back to more normal state, jump off and get going and do that. And I'm pretty enthusiastic about that, actually. You know, have been talking with another number of people, been following some of the stuff that cruise lines are doing. A number of cruise lines are now doing cruises on a limited basis, and have you know, they're just understanding the whole virus situation much better. How to clean things and how it's transmitted, and, you know, sort of the things that are very important to avoid, and the things that are somewhat important to avoid, and things that are okay. And now that we're 6 months down the road, people have a much better sense of what's going on, which is really really cool. And so today we're talking about the portfolio, and the portfolio is for people that work online. You have a thing called a profile. It's a little bit like a resume, but it's very different from a resume in that it's focused on the skills that you want to use online. Resumes tended to be very chronological and much more comprehensive, and profiles are very tightly focused on what you want to do going forward. They're not so much, although they do have an element of that, but they're not so much on your background. People like to get a quick look of at your background, in the sense of what companies you work for, what kind of work you did, but it's not extensive like it might be on a resume. So it's very different. And on most of these sites, part of your profile includes a thing called a portfolio. Now, of folks on the line, does anybody know what a portfolio is? Just type yes or no, and I'll get a little bit of a sense of where we're starting from, and that way we can I can sort of point my comments in a certain direction. Okay, Greg's saying yes. Okay, good. All right. So I'm assuming then that a number of people on the call as we're doing this live don't know what a portfolio is. It's a very simple thing. It's examples of the work that you can do. And if you're a writer, it would be an example of some articles that you've written. If you were very skilled in doing PowerPoint presentations, it might be not a whole PowerPoint presentation. That can be 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 slides. It would be a few representative slides, and this is a very important concept in portfolios, is that people will just put the whole PowerPoint deck up on the site as an example of their portfolio. And what that does, and this is something you want to become sensitive to, is the person seeing that on the other end feels like they have to go through the whole slide deck and to get an accurate assessment of what kind of PowerPoint person you are. And most people that are buying PowerPoint services, especially if they're sophisticated freelance buyers, they can look at 3 or 4 slides that you've done that are diverse. They don't all look the same. They all look a little different or a lot different, but they can really get a good sense of what your style is. And the important thing to realize is that they're not hiring you for life. They're hiring you just to do a simple job. And they want to see what your style is. They'll learn what your style is more extensively as you do that first assignment for them, because they want to see their material, their messages that you put into a PowerPoint presentation, and see how you conceptualize that and how you piece it together. And so that is a consideration as you do this. Most people put way too much in their proposal, in their portfolio. This is the mistake that they make as they do that. It's kind of like they want to treat it like the kitchen sink and throw everything in there. And really, sort of brevity is what people are looking for. The whole energy and focus of online freelancing is freelance buyers want to go in very quickly, scan across a number of qualified bids, and decide which person to give that first assignment job. Nobody, if you're new on a system, is going to say, listen, I've got this $1,000 PowerPoint presentation I want you to create. They'll never do that. Although I'm sure it's happened with the millions and millions of jobs that have gone on. but it's rare. It's like 0.0001% that somebody would put a big job on there. Usually what people will do is they will give you a tiny job, maybe a $25 job, a $50 job, something that you could probably do in an hour. And we call these audition jobs. And they would get you doing that audition job. And then based on what you provide back to them, based on their instructions, they're going to then make a decision about, do I hire this person or not? And one of the things that we see a lot that, again, most folks don't realize is that many times a freelance buyer will award the exact same job to 5 people. They might want 5 people to do a 5-slide PowerPoint presentation on exactly the same thing. And then when those 5 presentations come in, they're going to go through and they're going to look at each one and they're going to say, well, this is the person that really gets what we do. We're going to hire that person. And that is, how that comes together. So very important concept to know. And there's Tiffany coming in from behind the coconut curtain in Kauai. Good to see you, Doug. Doug's one of our professional certified coaches out in Hawaii and does a fabulous job, and always great to see him here. And Joanna, you might win the furthest away, coming in from Anchorage. And I spent a very tiny amount of time in Anchorage when I was on a cruise from Anchorage down to Vancouver. I actually spoke and trained on a cruise with one of the big cruise ship companies as I was sort of figuring out my own path of freelancing through this. So welcome, Joanna. Good to see you here. And we're talking today about mistakes that people commonly make with their portfolio when they go online. That they what things they do that kind of work against them as they do that. So the brevity is important if you're doing things like writing and proofreading, showing examples of maybe an article that has been, you can pull something off a web page that might be poorly written and then show what changes you would make and then show the finished copy. So that's a great way to demonstrate proofreading skills. And so that's something else you might want to do. The second biggest mistake is that people that do things like writing, and there's lots of different kinds of writing. There's everything from writing articles for online publications to business writing and customer service writing and that kind of thing. And particularly in the area of writing articles for online, people believe that if they haven't been published before, they have no chance of being able to do that kind of job. And actually, just the opposite is true. And I've talked to many people that have come through our program that says, gee, I've never had the job title writer or editor, or nothing I've ever written has ever been published. Oh, wait, I did write an article for our church bulletin about the fundraiser, so a few things like that. But people have always told me that I write well. And these are just the folks that for whom this online freelancing world works so well, because there are many, many businesses that want to go out and find a writer that can write just simple stuff, could write simple procedures, could rewrite their website, because now a whole bunch of stuff on their website has to change because we're coming out of the pandemic. And as they let customers back into their establishment, they have to be socially distanced. There's new levels of cleanliness. There's new stuff that has to go on that really taps into that writing skill. And just finding somebody that can explain something clearly is of paramount importance. It's in the freelance world, it's a very little importance that you have a book published or other articles published or that kind of thing. Most freelance writers are not looking for a named writer or somebody that has a lot of credentials in writing in terms of published articles. They're looking for somebody that can simply and clearly explain things, walk people through a process, how to articles, how to do gardening, how to do clean your house, how to move across country, just simple, typically 500 to 700 word articles. I remember that a few articles that I've written over the years, I didn't do a whole lot of writing until I got to this business, which I actually started in 2001, my company. Um, the articles were 1,500, 2,000 words, pretty long. They went in magazines, trade magazines, electronic products news, or something about to do with computing or that kind of thing. And they were 1,500 to 2,000 words long. People don't like to sit on the internet and read a 1,500 word article. And what research has determined is most people sitting at their computer on the internet get antsy if the article goes much over 500 words. So you'll see a lot of assignments for that 500-word article. So the thing that we suggest to kind of cure this not writing is to write 2 or 3 articles, because you are a writer. Just write them from scratch and write them about something that you're interested in, have deep knowledge in, that kind of thing. And those short articles can be 500 words, 600 words, 700 words, something like that, represent a great portfolio item. It gives the buyer a sense of your writing style. They don't care whether it was published or not. They don't care if you've written 1,000 articles for 1,000 different magazines, or whether you've just been writing emails for the last 30 years, telling people how to get someplace, telling people how to do something, that kind of thing. And a lot of us, beginning around the mid 90s, email came into our lives. And the thing I've noticed is that when that happened, many, many people, especially working in corporate America and smaller businesses, mid-sized businesses, and certainly working in government, got very much better at knowing how to write in the business context. And a lot of times that's what people are looking for. They're looking for answers to common questions that their clients ask. And they will tell you what the answers are, but they want you to explain it in a way that one of their clients or customers would understand better. I've heard freelance buyers say a lot, here's what we want to say, but we want to say it better than that. That's the idea. They're looking for somebody to come in from the outside that's not steeped in their organization and doesn't have a deep, sort of bias and filter and all that kind of stuff that's going to cause the article to miss its mark. So that's a really important way to do that, and a way to stay away from the mistakes. And let's see here. And then the third mistake that we see in portfolios is putting in too many items. There are, again, the more items you put in, the more time that your client has to spend looking at those items to figure out if they want to hire you or not. And if you put in 2 or 3 of your best samples of the kind of work you want to do, that's plenty. Over time, you will build other samples, and there is some value in building other samples. And for writers, that the way that works is, let's say that you've written you have a hobby of butterflies and you've written 3 articles about butterflies, that can get you started. When you work online, and this is one of the beautiful things about working online, every client has a different assignment. So you might get people that want you to write about something about nature, or something about hiking, or something about field trip photography, or whatever it might be, something obviously that you know a little something about, and something that they know a lot about and typically are very excited about. And then these other articles that you're writing then become samples that you can use to flesh out your writing portfolio. But you never want to present a buyer with 100 different examples of your writing. You want to present a writer with a freelance buyer with 2 or 3 examples. One of the systems, Upwork, lets you categorize things. So you could say, these are how-to articles. These are articles describing a trip to the Amazon, for example, or a visit to Grand Canyon or something like that. These are articles that apply to camping and preparing to camp and are sort of instructional in nature. And what's going to happen, depending on the nature of the job that you're going after, more than likely you're just going to show the client one of those categories, because that will most closely match what what that buyer wants to buy. They're not going to go read all your other articles. So this is very important to realize, that one of the things about getting started is that most clients that you work with, most projects that you work on, can become, with your client's permission, part of your portfolio. Now, it may mean that you have to take a company name out of there. We call it sanitizing. You take specific facts out of there that might be for internal consumption only. But if your client gives you permission, most everything that you do as you're getting started freelancing can be folded into your portfolio. And that becomes the very efficient way to build your portfolio as you go along. So happy to take any questions you might have at this point, anything to do with freelancing. We're all dealing with of lockdown now, and certainly this is I like the terminology, turning lemons into lemonade. For many people that have come through that are coming through our programs right now, we've seen a real surge in activity because people are taking this lockdown situation as time to build their freelancing skills. So it's kind of a perfect environment to do that, because someplace in the not too distant future, where the shackles are going to come off, and we're going to be out there traveling again, and walking into office buildings, and having dinner in restaurants that don't feel like an empty bowling alley in terms of how big they are and how few people are in there, and certainly get away from the mask situation. It's interesting. A lot of people have a lot of different opinions about masks, but one of the things I know about masks is, because I've studied this field as part of the work we do in our Barefoot Brain program, is that we get a lot of information about a person's receptivity to our thoughts and ideas, and we can see when somebody's perplexed about something. And when you put a mask on somebody, that takes away all kinds of information that helps you have a good conversation with somebody. And this is very well documented in science and physiology and that kind of thing. And our eyes and our nervous system have been trained over millions of years to look into a person's face and decide, is that person a threat? Are they trustworthy? That kind of thing. Now, we're not always right, but we're mostly right. And just all of a sudden taking that away from the equation of judging that is something that has really changed the quality of communication in a very negative way. People are not able to talk. And I know on the relatively few times that I go out, I'm sitting here every day talking to people around the world. And of course, we're all in our own little areas, and we don't have to fool around with mask, obviously, when you're virtual, because you're not exposing anybody or not coming into contact yourself. But it's very strange to go out. I had to pick up a package from Federal Express a few days ago, and it's just odd how that is, to go from talking to people all day long for weeks on end, and then all of a sudden going out and just seeing how masked up people are. So the one of the things that we have been talking about in some of these calls is the idea that there will be an increased demand for freelancing. And I wanted to just show you a few. I got some slides here. Hold on just a second. Where is that little rascal? There we go. Because we follow this, we kind of scan the waterfront for we have a meeting for those of you that are not members of our program every Tuesday night. And we like to, in addition to providing instruction for members, we like to keep everybody up to date on, what's going on in the freelance world. And certainly one of the things that is going on in the freelance world right now is people are seeing lots of business opportunities, lots of opportunities to become freelancers. Let me just do this and do this and do this. There we go. So you can see some of the articles, COVID-19 likely to give freelancing a major growth spurt, freelance revolution rising. And these are from, major publications out there, from Forbes to Careers Magazine and different websites of note. And, what's unique about this time period that we're in is that there's never been a time in our history when everything changed at once, like it has, and where all of a sudden businesses have to change their business model. In many cases, they have to change how people come in and out of their facilities. I mean, I saw I think it was a YouTube video on Disneyland is locked down and not taking people because it's kind of closer, more concentrated. But Disney World is open at some level, because it's much more spread out. And, just the massive changes they have to make to how people stand in line and how far apart they are, and, what areas they eat in and how separated they are, and just do they check temperatures. And it's interesting. I was first exposed to temperature checking in about 2005 on the tail end of the SARS epidemic in Southeast Asia. And I went to several different countries at the time. And what they do is they were actually, there were two ways they were doing it. And so this has been quite a while ago. This is that's 15 years ago. And the primary thing that you saw is there was always a camera focused on people walking off the plane, and there was a technician. And a couple times I'd walk around and see what the technician was looking at, and they were looking for people coming off the plane with a fever, and they could see that even then. And of course, that whole process is so much more sophisticated now. And if you had a fever, they would, ask you to kind of step aside. And let me see if I can get back to I did something that, there we go. something that would ask you a few questions about, where have you been, and did you know you had a fever, and that kind of thing. And then they do a little bit further medical evaluation, and they would either put you in quarantine or let you go. There's a couple different ways to go. And what I learned back then, as I spent some time in China, that people, 98.6 is the standard temperature for most people, but some people run a little hotter, and it's not that they're sick, it's just they run a little hotter, and some people run a little cooler. So there's a little variability in there. So you have to have a conversation with somebody really to figure out those pieces. There's Bob. That's an interesting comment. CDC released a study showing that wearing masks put you at higher risk, versus no mask. And we're living in a time where we're getting conflicting information, and it's interesting. Once we get out of the fog of what we're in right now, it'll be easier to see more clearly. We'll have more historical data and be able to separate that. But anybody that's looked into nutrition or tried to lose weight or tried to exercise will also see the same thing. You go into the world of exercise and fitness and all that kind of stuff, and everybody's got an opinion, and one opinion is completely opposed to the other. And in many cases, the science isn't in, the science isn't conclusive, and there are more studies going on and that kind of thing. And I saw an interesting thing on TV the other day that said they were talking about different organizations, political organizations. Obviously, we're in a very charged time right now, that say, hey, we respect the science, and that's how we make our decisions. Well, the truth is that there are several different scientific opinions, or many different scientific opinions, and it's the nature of science that until you have enough data to draw conclusions, you may not be able to make a scientific conclusion. We've seen that with the virus, as the contamination stuff is going up and down, and that kind of thing. And just again, some of the news reporting I've seen says that, hey, we're locking down bars and restaurants in a certain city. And when you look at the data that says where did somebody catch COVID, of the number of places they're able to determine, bars and restaurants are way low on the list. It's not where typically people are getting it. And in fact, the greatest infection rate comes from people and I'm just repeating the news that I've heard from the CDC, from people at home, and so and I'm sure the science isn't complete around that. So lots of things to understand as this goes on, but a great time to take advantage of using this time to build your skills, to learn new things, to open up new vistas, and to plan your next trip. So I'd be interested to know the people that we've got on the call today. And even if you're listening to the replay on this, if you could just type into the chat window, the chat area will continue to grow, the message area. And so, Greg is saying that in the Dominican, people are walking and doing things. And my daughter in Shanghai says very much the same thing, is that that in stores, everybody wears a mask, in a retail store or inside. But around Shanghai, they're pretty much walking around, about half the people with masks, half the people not. So a lot of places around the world, things are returning to normal. And in some places around the world, they're arresting people for not wearing a mask. So one of those things that has yet to be figured out. So where's the first place you're going to go as soon as you feel comfortable traveling? If you would pop that into the chat window, I would just like to be curious of where you would go. My first place to go um, will probably be Huatulco in Mexico. And Greg's going to go to Panama. And yeah, that's great. Yeah, Greg says forever. Yeah, that's a little bit how uh, you know, how we all feel. Uh, Doug's going to go to New Zealand. That's a very pristine environment. I remember a story a few years ago about an actress who, on the plane going to New Zealand, was served, a little snack tray with some cheese and vegetables and an apple on it. And she didn't want to eat the apple right then, so she dropped it in her purse. And as she was going through immigration and customs, they arrested her for bringing an apple into New Zealand. So they have a very, uh, very nice uh, set of rules around that keeps that environment very pristine. And I know that I've talked to a couple people in New Zealand that are in our programs, and they said that New Zealand did very well during the lockdown. And again, I don't know how they were doing now. It looked like Europe was on the mend and doing very well. And now their cases have jumped to they're exceeding the total number of U.S. cases. So they've jumped out in a lead in an undesirable category. Robert's headed for home in Southern California. That's neat. I certainly miss Southern California. I have a daughter that lives there and always enjoy going back when I can. But I come to the United States, and one of the great things about living abroad is you don't get the exposure to news and this 24-hour news and opinion cycle that seems to just create this background of anxiety for people or conflict for people. It's like sitting in a restaurant, and if you hear somebody 2 tables over having an argument or something, it kind of ruins the experience for you. And that's when you're in Mexico, things are laid back, and people, when they first get to Mexico, they get upset that they something doesn't happen. A popular phrase is mañana, tomorrow. And so that happens, and you have to develop a tolerance for that, or accept that, I guess, would be the right thing to do. And it's just as one person I talked to described, it's like living in the 50s, in the United States. In fact, there was a great internet meme I saw. Let me see if I can pull this up. Hold on just a minute. I don't know if I saved it on here. Might be on my, let me look on my phone. But it rang very very true for me. It said, let me get to that thing. Here we go. My kids wanted to know what it was like for me growing up. So I took their phones, shut off the internet, gave them a popsicle, and told them to go outside and play till the streetlights came on. And growing up, that was very true for me. Lived in just a quiet suburban neighborhood, and we'd ride bikes and play softball in the street because, maybe a car came along once an hour or something like that, not a lot of traffic, and make puddles and mud pies and everything in between. And it is amazing how different it is. Pretty much everybody is, head down like this, and particularly down here in Huatulco, when you have a view like that overlooking the harbor and everything, it's just amazing to wake up every day and see that vista there. Just quite a nice vista. And I have found psychologically it's a good thing to do, to focus on what you're going to do when you get out of this situation. We're going to go back to a normal, and most of us are not going to travel all at once all around the world, but we are going to look at traveling and go to some of our favorite places and soak up and relax, because we don't have to wear a mask and we don't have to be worried about catching something as we roll around out there across the planet. So let's see. We had a few questions from our Tuesday night call. Let's see what we got there. Oh, this is an interesting thing. One of the networks that we really like is called Upwork, and we don't have a financial relationship with them other than we use their, we hire services through there and that kind of thing. But Upwork is now accepting Zoom meetings, and this is interesting. The context for that is Upwork likes all communication that you have, or the main communications that you have, to go through the Upwork system. And Upwork had their own video system that you could use to talk to your clients. But of course, it was not the best. Zoom is really a much better video system. And particularly if people in a company know how to use Zoom, when they're hiring freelancers, they don't want to change their whole operations process around to use the system on Upwork. In fact, a lot of companies, it's very important to record meetings and get transcripts and work from transcripts for action items that come out of the meeting and that kind of thing. And so this is a big step forward that Upwork has wisely seen, that clearly they had to have the number one video conferencing tool on their system. So kudos to Upwork for doing that. The issue is that there are occasionally some fraudsters that will go onto these systems, and they'll try to get you into a private phone conversation, and they'll say, let's not work through Upwork, let's work through PayPal, I'll just pay you. And a new freelancer that doesn't know a lot said, oh yeah, that sounds great. Well, the problem with that is that Upwork has all kinds of contractual things built in that protect you as a freelancer. And when you go off to work on PayPal, you have none of those protections. For example, if you do a job, an assignment on Upwork, and either you or the client close the job, when it's finished, your money is automatically deposited in your bank account or wherever you've asked it to be deposited within 30 days. And when somebody, you send an invoice on PayPal, well, they can pay it or they can not pay it. The person you did the work for is the sole decider of whether you get paid or not. And heard and seen over the years lots of horror stories of people doing work for somebody through PayPal. They say, well, why should I work on a system like Upwork? And the reason is you have many, many protections on Upwork that you don't have when you go to just a payment system. And that's a very important concept to understand. in non-online work, most freelancers that bill their clients directly can spend up to 20 to 30% of their time chasing their clients to get paid. And the most typical payment time from invoice to payment is in the 90 to 120 days range in non-network freelancing. On network freelancing, it's 30 days. And so that is, as a freelancer, that's a wonderful thing. You want to do freelancing and what you want to do. You don't want to spend time chasing people down for money. And most of all, you don't want to lose money. You know, that's the thing. On Upwork, basically, when somebody starts a job, if you follow the things that we recommend in terms of accepting that job, that money comes out of the person's account, your buyer's account, and goes into escrow on the Upwork system. And unless you abandon the job or don't deliver the work, those funds, once the job is closed, go right into your bank account. And that's a very important aspect of that. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time if somebody got all spun up on getting a freelancer to do something and started the project with the best of intentions at the beginning of the month, and then at the end of the month they had overspent in some other areas in their business, and now they no longer have the funds to pay you. And Upwork completely eliminates that risk on your part. So very good to understand that. Let's see here. A couple more things. Oh, we had one person that asked if a client, if a freelance buyer on a network purposely misspells something or puts a typo in their job description and they're hiring an editor or proofreader, do you think that that's something they're doing intentionally to see if you catch that? And I would say that no, it's not. I mean, somebody may do that, but that's not a common practice. In fact, in most job descriptions, as in most emails we get from people at work or whatever it might be, would say that that really is not a factor. If your boss sends you an email and it's got 3 typos in it, you're not going to do what they're requesting you to do because it has 3 typos. And we've had people go through our programs that get to the point and they say, well, I'm doing proofreading and this buyer had 3 mistakes in their job description and I don't even want to bid in it. I don't want to work for somebody who is that poor with the English language. Well, first of all, if they only have 3 mistakes in a couple hundred words, it's not that they're that poor. Yes, they made mistakes. It happens for many different reasons. We're tapping on a keyboard, that kind of thing. The point is that people that need proofreaders hire proofreaders and hire editors and that kind of thing. So you really don't want to infer a lot of, sort of Machiavellian strategies going on in these job descriptions. They're just pretty much straight up what they are and what they do. So just a great a great way to take things at face value and learn how to do that. And every once in a while you're surprised, it's not quite face value, but that's part of the learning experience. And it's like on being on the interstate versus being on a rural road or something along those lines. You're going to see some different sights and you're going to smell some different smells and you're going to hear some different sounds. And but the thing to know is that what it really gives you is the freedom to get all of this. And that's why freelancing is such a great opportunity for so many baby boomers, is it taps into the huge amount of experience that they already have, and it helps, and it's something they can do from home. Certainly right now, as we're still coming out of the pandemic, in Dallas, where I am, they're not letting people that are employees of companies that are 60 and above go back into the corporate office. They're having to work from home. They are letting people come back in, but not the seniors. And Greg made a nice comment there. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. And then said, yeah, you're not being paid to do that. That's correct. Very good. Excellent. All righty. Well, we're coming up on the end of our Facebook Live today. If there's any other questions I can answer, or any other topics you'd like to hear a little bit about, happy to do that in the few remaining minutes here. So I'll give you a minute to pop that into the chat window. And certainly, if you're listening to the replay of this and you have a question, you can put that in the chat window, and we'll answer it on the next Facebook Live. So we'll see your question and we'll roll it into our next Facebook Live. So thank you for that, Greg. Always good to see you, and good to catch up with folks on a Friday afternoon going into the weekend. And yes, everyone, please stay safe. Pay attention to what's going on. Hopefully we'll shortly be in a period of time where we can don't have to pay quite as much attention. That'll be a fun time. So with that, we'll look forward to seeing you next week. For our members that are, we'll see you live on our Tuesday night training calls. And for our Barefoot Brain members, our coaches, we'll see you live on Wednesday night for our training call on Wednesday night. And thank you, Greg. That's very nice. We hope you don't have power failures. I guess in Huatulco not too long ago, they had a pretty big power failure that shook everybody up a little bit. So look forward to seeing you all next week, and have a great week between now and then. Take care. Adios.